Okay, so good morning. So before I start with anything, right, I start with the presentation of it. I want to ask a simple question, right, to you all. Can I get a raise of hands or anyone that is using social media daily, right? All right. So basically everyone, right? So when we are using social media, right? How can we be so sure that we are safe, right? How can we be so sure when we're sharing our data, or sharing our names, sharing our photos, sharing our lifestyles? How can we be so sure that we are still cyber-physically secure in social media and or in the internet? My name is Darren, and I'm going to present about my research findings. So after thinking about all of that, it brings us to this question. How does sharing personal data with big companies, such as maybe, let's say, TikTok, Instagram, Meta, those are big companies, right? And how does it affect Gen Z's cyber-physical security? I think that's the two most important variables in this question, which is sharing personal data, right, with big companies, and how does it affect Gen Z's cyber-physical security. And I've narrowed down the scope into in Surabaya and related to data breaches. So imagine this. This right here is my friend's IG profile, right? He's a teenager. I'm gonna give 5 until 10 seconds for you to take a good look at this profile. You can see his name, right, his bio, his post, and I want you to think about the things of information that you can take just by looking at this post, right? 5 to 10 seconds. You can see right there is his bio, right there is his post. While waiting, I want to ask you, what type of data do you usually post on social media while waiting for this?
My hobbies.
Oh, your hobbies, right? Your hobbies, your lifestyle, right? Okay, so whatever answers you have, just keep it. We're gonna move on together. So let's start from the top, right? We can see his followers, his bio. What do we know first? The first off is his real name. That's what stands out the most. His username is just Justin, right? And it's not even the correct spelling, right? His real name is Justin Nathaniel. That's the first thing that pops out, right? The second thing is we know his hobbies. He's a music producer and a photographer, right? Well, many of you may ask, so what if we know this information, right? Yeah, he's a music producer, so what? But for big companies, knowing someone's hobby is like gold to them. Because by knowing someone's hobby, they know what to advertise to them. For example, in Instagram, they know, because Justin is a music producer and photographer, they know to advertise maybe guitars, instruments, maybe cameras, lenses, photography stuff, right? And next, we know that he posts a Bible verse on his bio, which means he's a Christian, right? That's his beliefs. By that, big companies can advertise Christian content, maybe content that aligns with his faith. And next, his influential power. We know that he has 32 posts and 2,000 plus followers, which means anything that he says, anything that he posts, anything that he buys, can potentially influence over 2,000 people. Right? That means that he has a decent enough influential power. So let's go down. So looking from this post, what we can know from this post? First of all, his age, right? You can see a picture of him playing a guitar. We know that he's in his teenage days. He's a Gen Z, right? We know his age group. Next, we can see a picture of his new guitar, of his lifestyle, of his car. By just looking at those two pictures, we can conclude that this economic class, he belongs in the upper middle class. Which means that companies can advertise maybe something more expensive to him, right? Nothing can advertise maybe cars, maybe brand new guitars that are more likely more expensive to him. Next, we can know his sharing habits. We know before that he has 30 plus posts, right? And looking at the pattern of his posts right here, we know that his posts are mostly about his lifestyle, about his hobbies, his cars, his experience. We know that he often shares about his life, which means anything that he buys, anything that he does, he usually shares it on social media. That just adds to his influential power. So after knowing all the problems, right, after I think through all that, I done my research. So these are the key findings to the research. The first one is that it is evident that teenagers are nowadays more and more willing to share their data for free. We can see before, the IG profile that I have just built, all of those pictures I've taken from his profile. Yeah. Just from that, we know that nowadays teenagers are more and more willing to share their data for free in the internet. The second key findings that I found is that evident by the first question, everybody here uses social media. At least once in their life, they ever use social media or share their data on the internet. Either it's through forums, anything, they have ever shared their data. So moving on to the graph findings, I asked my respondents two main questions. The first one is, what type of data do respondents find particularly valuable? Right, we have options such as maybe emails, contact, your name, location, password, social media accounts, right? And as you can see, averagely, they value the data the same, right? They value email, passwords, they usually value the same, except for one. This is what makes it interesting. They tend to value social media profiles the lowest. That is what I found. And this is probably because usually social media profile like LinkedIn, Instagram is already public for other people to see. So that's why I think they tend to value it the lowest. Instead of the other sensitive data, maybe location data, financial data that is more sensitive to people. Next question I asked is, have you ever experienced data breaches firsthand? So by the effect implication, they feel it on their own. Right? Surprisingly, 87.7% of them never experienced data breach, which means all of the questions I asked about the risk, the implications, they get their answer from somebody else. They got the experience of data breach from the news, maybe from the word of mouth. Okay, these are the two findings. Now we're going to move on this. So before we talk about the statistics here, I'm going to talk about what is doxing first. Doxing. Maybe many of you have heard doxing from the internet, or internet jargon maybe. Doxing is basically the act of revealing someone's information without their consent. So when we share maybe our friend's location data, our friend's photo without their consent, that is called doxing. Right? By knowing what doxing is, I asked the respondent, do you think does it pose a threat to Gen Z teenagers that usually share the data around the internet? And surprisingly, all of them seem to agree that at least doxing poses a somewhat of a threat to Gen Z teenagers, right? Well, most of them voted for, which means most of them agree that doxing brings a significant threat to Gen Z teenagers who share their data. So after all of that, what are the conclusions that I can take? I believe that I can confidently conclude two things from my research. The first one is the value of our data keeps gaining value each and every day as we go on, as technology evolves. Companies more and more are willing to give up more for our data. For example, they are willing to give out maybe free trips to Japan, or maybe more promotions, 50% promotion, just in a cost of you just signing up. Maybe signing with Google, maybe just give your name, your email, they will give you free promotion. They are willing to give up more for our data, which means that our data's value is increasing each and every day as technology evolves. The second thing, although our data gets more valuable each day, I can conclude that while Gen Z recognizes its short-term implications of data sharing, they often look the long-term. What do I mean by this? Usually, maybe, let's take an example, maybe your phone number is leaked. Maybe the short-term implication would be you get spam calls, right? But the long-term implication can happen 1 or 2 years after. That is what I believe Gen Z usually overlook. As our data gets valuable every day, they tend to overlook its long-term implications. So remembering those conclusions, what are the recommendations I give to the people? The first one, I think, is for parents. I think we must embrace technology. That's the first thing. We cannot run from it, we cannot avoid it, we must embrace it. And by embracing technology, I think as parents, parents are usually more wiser than the children themselves, right? So I think parents play a big role in educating their loved ones and their children on what to share and what not to share, right? And the next one is for Gen Z, for ourselves and myself also, right? I'm also a Gen Z. And I think it's very important for us to be responsible about what we share, right? We know phones are getting more advanced. They're almost getting as small as this mouse that I'm holding right here, right? This small device have great power. We have great power in our hands. We can spread misinformation, we can spread factual information, we can bring someone up, we can bring someone down, right? Just with our phones. So I think it's very important that we are responsible with what we share and to know the risks and implications. So that's all for me. I'm going to end with a quote: with great power comes with great responsibility. Thank you for listening. My name is Darren, and God bless you.